Hello Disc Priest gamers, Chad Addy here with my first real video for 10.2. I got a request for a video like this on one of my older videos, and I figured it would be good for reference in the future as well. So I'll be trying to outline what I do to prepare for fights my guild is moving into for Heroic or Mythic, which resources I use, etc. And I'll go through these tools in stages, and I'll start with Warcraftlogs, which I consider most fundamental to Disc Priests. There are other tools that I will not be using or going over today, which is Lorgs, for example, which is a website that I personally disagree with. Alright, let's get into Warcraftlogs. Alright, here we are in Warcraftlogs. Let's go over one of my Gnarlroot Mythic logs to use the tools that I usually use for log review or preparation. So let's go into one of these logs, and once we're inside here, we're gonna go into our first tool. So, under these categories, we change to damage taken, and then at the very right here, we swap from taken by friendly to taken from ability. And here we get a graph which outlines the peaks and valleys of the damage events. And then at the bottom, we get a list of these damage events and what is the name of the ability that is dealing damage to us. What I use this for is determining damage patterns or looking at what deals the most damage to us in the fight and other similar kind of use cases. So if I wanted to, for example, figure out what's dealing damage to us during this peak that we see here, what I could do is I could zoom in on this peak. And the way you do this is by moving into this graph, and then at the start of the peak, you hold your left mouse button down, and then you drag it over the peak until it ends, and then you release. What this creates is a zoom on this damage event. And here we can see that what we're taking here is damage from the Tortured Scream, which is a dot, going into these ads going off, as well as the debuffs going out and exploding. And you can see that the damage pattern here is very tail-ended. And this might actually change how we choose to ramp for this damage event, for example. So that's something to take into account. Okay. Let's reset the zoom here at the top. You just click that and you're back out again. Fantastic. So that's a good example of how you can use the damage taken and damage taken from ability to kind of determine what a damage pattern might look like. Not to linger too long on this though, I want to move on to how you can use cast timelines to do log reviews or prepare for fights by looking at other Disc Priests, or maybe just prepare for a fight again after you've already killed a boss, looking at what you did wrong the last time. So what you do then is you go under the categories here to casts, and then you pick your character here, or the person that you want to emulate, and then you go to timelines here, to the right of tables. Okay. Now this shoots out this little timeline with a timestamp here at the top, and here you can see every cast that this selected player has used. And this, working together with the damage taken from ability and the Viserios spreadsheet, can serve as a fantastic tool to see how you're ramping for certain damage events. Alright, so here we can see, for example, where I choose to use my uppies, where I choose to use my radiances if I'm making a mistake. For example, here we can see that my radiances are a little bit far apart here, which is a little bit strange. We would definitely class that as a mistake. And I think that's a very good example of like what your attitude should be when you're looking through here. And that's your cast timelines. Okay. Moving onwards to Viserios spreadsheet so that we have something to cross-reference as well. Okay, here we are in the Viserios spreadsheet. So, I want to preface this by saying that I will not be teaching you the basics of this spreadsheet. Any such questions are better directed at the Viserio Discord, and any help that you might need can be given there. This assumes that you know the basics. So, the way that I like to prepare for these fights is that I always want to cross-reference with logs. So, for example, on this boss, we want to figure out what deals the most damage. So if I take up one of my logs here of Igira, we can see that the hardest hitting damage event here is the Searing Sparks. So if I click on that, I get these little peaks, and I can see that this damage starts at 50 seconds roughly. Now, at 50 seconds is actually the intermission, so this is the intermission damage. Okay, so that's the most important. I want to hit this with my strongest cooldown. Okay, let's do that. We want to hit this with our Evangelism then. So let's assign our radiances here. Evangelism. Let's also assign our pet. Helps clean it up a bit. And because we saw that this intermission happens more than once in the logs, we'll assign another ramp here, just for the example. And then we'll work backwards. The way this fight works on Mythic is that you only actually get some of the mechanics in each of the kind of phase ones after you've soaked the torments in the intermission. So in the first phase here, we actually have no extra mechanics, so the only damage event that exists are these two spears. Because it's a little bit tight to use 3 radiances in this first phase, we'll just for now assign 1 radiance for each of these spears. But we also know that we have not used Rapture, so we'll assign a Rapture here as well for these first spears. Okay, looks good. But we also know that at the pull, we'll likely be using a Power Infusion. So what we can also do here is assign a Shadow Fiend, because we'll definitely get this back up for the intermission. Looks a little bit sketchy, but you'll definitely be able to. Just keep smiting. Okay, so what we did now was we assigned this first, this Searing Sparks intermission damage. Then we worked backwards through the first phase here, assigning our other cooldowns. Okay, let's do the same again here. Now, in this next phase, we have the leap damage, the jump AoE here, and then we have the healing absorb, and these overlap roughly. The leap damage is actually 2 hard-hitting damage events, and I think that this one is the most important to hit, so that's where we'll kind of use our radiances here. Okay. You can actually have 2 radiances for each of these jumps, or leaps. So I'll assign 2 radiances for each, and then what I'll also do is, because Rapture was used at 9 seconds into the fight, I can actually use it again for this first leap here, or jump AoE, as it's called in the Viserios spreadsheet. So that way we're cycling our Rapture here on cooldown, which is perfect. So now we know that we, once again, kind of did the same thing, where we went backwards from the intermission and assigned ourselves. But for example then, if you wanted to assign your Shadow Fiend here, you could do that. So we used Shadow Fiend here at roughly 48 to 50 seconds. And then we would maybe want it back up here, which is almost a minute later, which is realistic. So let's assign Shadow Fiend here. Fantastic. Okay, I'm pretty happy with what I see so far. There's probably some more radiances that can be cycled. But this is just to give you a rough idea for what my attitude is to planning a fight, how I line my abilities up in the spreadsheet, and how to structure your playstyle. And I think that if you ever do get yourself one of these spreadsheets, it is so valuable to put this into your personal note, use the case MRT weak aura, and get yourself structured in Raid. It's so helpful. Anyway, I hope people enjoyed the video. It's been really rough trying to push the video out. I've had a lot of troubles with my voice. I've been sick the past 3 weeks. There's also more videos coming with live commentary. Got put a little bit on hold by some server issues, my last raid, but I'm looking to upload a Nimue Mythic video at least soon. So we'll see when that comes out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.